So there's an old saying out there, a tired dog's a happy dog. And I've touched on this in the past, but in my experience, tired dog's the same as a tired human. Shit. It's antisocial, it's not in a good frame of mind for learning, and its tolerance levels are at an all-time low. Over here in Australia, we hear sayings like exercise, discipline, affection, tired dog's a happy dog. And we see in pet stores every day trying to sell the next stimulating thing, the next ball that the dog gets frustrated because it can't get in its mouth, the next ball chucker that involves no interaction with people whatsoever. And all of this is doing is creating a culture where, driven by guilt from not looking after our dog, we're getting told all the time that we're not looking after our dog well enough if we're not running them hard enough. And what it's creating is a bunch of moron dogs and uneducated owners around mental health for dogs. We put so much emphasis on looking after their physical health that we forget about their brains. We literally try to run them into the ground every day, hoping that they become well behaved. Because unfortunately, that's what people know. That's what people have been told to do for so long. And yet we're still seeing so many problem behaviors present. And if a problem behavior does present, then the go-to in this narrative is you're not running it hard enough. You're not exercising it enough. You're a bad owner. But let's be honest. If you've been trying to keep up with your dog physically for so many months and you're more tired than your dog, is it the body? Is it the body that's breaking down, or is it the brain of the dog that actually just should be looked at? Because most problem behaviors, unwanted behaviors, are driven by stress, fear, anxiety. And they're mental issues. They're the dog not learning how to behave. They've got nothing to do with excess energy. Most people have tried running the dog by the time they've called a dog trainer. When we get there, we'll often say, hey, have you tried interacting with it? Have you tried actually calming it down in that situation? Because if we think about it, if we just took our kids to school and then asked them to run around the playground, go crazy all day, would we expect them to be good at maths? Would we expect them to pass exams? Would we expect them to actually be in a good frame of mind when they got home? They're going to be shitty little assholes that throw tantrums and act out all the time because they're in a horrific frame of mind. There is a massive difference between tiring a dog out through high adrenaline play and running and teaching it how to relax. And we do live in a city. Like, this is coming from a perspective, let's be clear, that we live and work with dogs in an urban environment. Sure, if you've got limited stimulation throughout your day in a country setting or even a quiet suburban setting, then take it for a run, leave it in the yard. The old school way of owning a dog is great, but the reality is that I'm trying to get through to people in an urban environment where there is heaps more going on. You know, you take that dog out for a run, and one, you've got to be conscious of where you let it off lead, because it's not always appropriate to let it off lead absolutely everywhere in an urban environment. But you know, the other thing is that the amount of information that dog has to absorb throughout the day, and I don't think people understand the toll that takes on the dog. The amount of traffic noise, the amount of dogs it has to meet, the amount of people it has to interact with. Actually stopping and sitting down at a cafe is a big goal, and the common goal of dog owners in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, but everywhere in Sydney realistically. And rather than just laughing at it, laughing at these owners for wanting to live a different life, I think they should be helped. And that is what this is about. This is about explaining to them that you are living a different life to your dog than everyone else, but that is okay. But rather than focusing on physical exercise, hoping that they run around and crash and burn, take them in and gradually desensitize them to that environment by building calm associations. Because one of the things we see repeatedly now is dogs that are about 1 year to 18 months old, absolutely exhausted. This is all breeds of dogs, but things that the ones that we see real commonly are herding breeds, gun dogs and other working breeds, and staffies. And these are all breeds that are associated with high energy and it goes back to that culture of got to run them, got to spike, got to tire them out every day. You know, the herding dog that can run all day, the hunting dog that runs all day, and the staffy, you take one look at it and with his nuggety body and his blockhead personality, nobody thinks about entertaining these dogs' brains. Of course, on the farm, and when they're out being worked, and you know, staffies need it as well. They need mental stimulation. That herding dog and the gun dog that just run around aimlessly all day, they're pretty useless to the one that's working them. After a year, 12 months and 8 to 18 months of constantly being run around day after day in a high adrenaline state is inevitably going to take its toll. We see a massive mood shift where people say, oh, my dog used to be really social and used to be really friendly. How many border collies and herding dogs do you see being social in a dog park? And I don't mean with a ball. I mean actually interacting with dogs in Sydney, because these dogs they just got shitty all of a sudden, and it's building. It wasn't really all of a sudden. It was gradually building over time. And how many working dogs do you see just constantly start, you know, with weird personality traits like chasing shadows and incessantly not being able to stop chasing the birds? It's one thing wanting to chase the birds, it's another not being able to stop chasing the birds. And the staffy, you know, that he's friendly, he just wants to play, yes, but he's too overstimulated to hear the other dogs, and now he's just got a learnt association of hyper-arousal, and he's massive and strong, and nobody else wants him to play with the other dogs because he's a moron that never actually learned how to calm down and listen to what others were saying. Nobody's actually thinking, God, these dogs have got lots of energy, I'm going to ask them how to train them how to stay. I'm going to actually engage their brains and get them to think. Thinking and mental stimulation tires the dog out so much more effectively while creating healthy relationships and desensitizing to their environment. And it just does so much more for the dog. Don't get me wrong, physical exercise is super important. And yes, you should be putting in some effort towards keeping your dog physically active and healthy, but that is about just looking after the general health. It's got nothing to do with creating a social dog. So if there was more emphasis on looking after the mental health of the animal rather than just purely the physical health of the animal, everybody would be benefiting from this. Both are really important. And both have a major role, but unfortunately one of them is more mainstream than the other, and yet I think more problem behaviours these days are caused by mental health issues. For more information on the effects of hyperarousal, we do have a video on that as well. Go and have a look and let us know what you think.